So I think a pretty ubiquitous question we hear a lot of time, me and my guys, is why aren't men approaching, or at least the men that we want of a certain caliber approaching? I think this woman has a really great point. So I'm gonna let her get into it. We'll discuss at the end.
It might be my algorithm, but it seems like every single day I'm getting a video about a woman who was going online talking about how she is not getting approached from men, she is not getting the attention that she wants at singles events, at restaurants when she's out and about, and there's this frustration that men just are not stepping up. And I think one thing that is oftentimes missed from this whole conversation is that we have to remember that we want to be offering the things that men actually like and are attracted to. And I think some of us, quite frankly, are just offering what they're not trying to buy. Like, to be more frank, being very, very clear, right? You may have a lot of men who say, hey, I actually prefer natural hair, but there may be pushback. Ladies feeling like, oh, you're trying to control my weaves or my wigs or my expression. You may have some dudes who's like, hey, I'm not really into like the fake lashes like that or the heavy makeup. But then you have ladies who still feel like they don't want to go outside unless they have their face beat and have all them big old lashes, right? You have some dudes who are just like not really into the BBLs, not really into the fake body stuff, but you'll have ladies out there who are still hell bent on getting BBL. So I'm just saying, sometimes I feel because we haven't really cultivated a culture that is about listening, women listening to men, men listening to women, it's a lot of talking at, but it's not really a lot of talking to. I think there's a lot of
I think that point right there is pretty spot on. Um, and of course, we're talking from the men's point of view here, where we sort of grew up in a culture and society that already tells us how things are from a woman's point of view. And I think that has, there's multifaceted reasons behind that. One of them is that our society heavily influences and advertises to women. So they cater. So they want to know their point of view, and to better sell you something, they need to understand your point of view. So they constantly put that out. So we have movies, magazines, TV, like everything is geared towards from a woman's point. Ask Tyler Perry, right? Everything is like this from specifically this point of view. So men have that is seeped into the culture. So we have a better understanding, should have a better understanding, because women are absolutely changeable of what their desires are, what is being voiced as voiced as advertised. We flip it. I don't think women have an understanding of what men are looking for. They see the peripheral. They see where the attention of men seems to be pointed at. But that attention is what, say, social media has said is valuable. But they look at it from what they think the culture cares about: athletes, entertainers, right? You see athletes and entertainers putting their attention on a certain type of woman, but they're not looking at, say, the black community, the business class, the business elite, or the upper middle class men. They're not looking at us and saying, well, what do you want? What do you eventually settle down with? Who are the type, what are the characteristics of the woman that you actually marry? We don't push that. So what we're left with is an example of maybe a vocal minority. So you see BBLs, you see hair a certain way, you see eyelashes, and then that is further pushed and said, this is what men want. So then women take that cue. So when you have very real conversations, because honestly, you have a better shot at getting the type of man that your grandmother got, that your mother got, than the elite rapper or ball player or such. Just because one, there's an exposure thing, right? And our culture doesn't really gears towards those type of relationships. So when men are in these spaces and they start talking about what they want, right? And I'll try to find examples of this later on. I think I have a couple saved that I want to go over. Men, we experience this pushback where we're being told a real man would do this, a real men want this, or we're actually being talked to as if they, as these women, have a better understanding of what we want from ourselves and our lives. And we're left with this almost disconnect. And we eventually learn Maladaptively, I'll just shut up. I'll just shut up, right? Because when I try to tell you what I want, what's important to me, why is there pushback? Conversely, when you tell me what's important to you, I'm supposed to adhere to it as gospel. Let's continue.
Ladies who just actually legitimately don't understand what men are attracted to. And so they get confused when they go out and they're not getting the attention, they're not getting the traction that they want, they're not getting what they think they should be getting, the attention, validation, or whatever. And it's like sometimes we're just simply not offering, right? Or we're not selling what they're buying. And it could be the most basic change. Sometimes it's just like smile. Sometimes we don't even know. Some must be looking mean. Some must be having this just like resting bee face with just
I think we've all heard that conversation play out in real time that telling women to smile can't do that. You can't really correct or you can't instruct in any sort of way. Otherwise, you're going to be met with this sort of tsunami like backlash online. So again, men just they keep it quiet and they keep it moving and they let you do whatever you want. I think what she's getting at, if you're out in public, you're out in the wild, and you are exemplifying behaviors that you believe that men want, but in reality, you're not around those men that want those things, or they want it on a very temporary basis. They want to lease it. They want it for a day, a week, and when they're done with the rental, they'll let it go back. So if you're not what we're looking for, just in that same market forces dynamic, then they don't buy, right? And then most men are being told, well, you're already priced out of what I'm looking for. So then we get into this almost depressive state where it's like it's not worth it, right? The potential headache here isn't worth any type of investment. Finish up.
be super serious, but then be surprised if somebody don't approach us. Remember, this is post Me Too. This is after the time a lot of guys got the message that you don't want to approach a woman in a particular way because that can be seen as, harassment. And so I'm just saying some of this stuff is not even complicated. If we start offering what these guys are interested in, then we might actually see better results. I don't know. These are just thoughts.
So on that last point is I think is absolutely correct. There's this weird point where women as a whole were telling men, don't approach. If I'm in the gym, grocery store, I'm out with my girls. Leave us alone. Let me do my thing. Let me live. All right. Now the problem is that the good men that respected your boundaries anyway, they were raised that way. They weren't part of the abusive class. They weren't part of the oppressive class. They simply looked and said, "Okay, correct. I can adhere to that. I will leave you alone." What was left with was the shooters of the game, the men that's going to shoot at whatever, and that's their mo. So what you have left is just a concentration of men that I don't really care about your boundaries. I was going to shoot. I was going to shoot. I was going to do what I wanted anyway. So now what you're left with just this concentration of men that didn't care about what you had to say anyway, now you're left wondering, where are those good men? And it's not as if there's a specific country club or a secret club with secret handshakes that you're just not privy to. They're just they're all around you, right? They're like day walkers, right? And they're just ignoring you. They're letting you be. They're silently listening to your conversations. When you get within your friend group or a group and you start bashing men, they just tick off in the head. Say, okay, cool. You're not what I'm looking for. Even if you're just going with the flow, even if you're just kind of repeating whatever talking point was popular, because you may not feel like that. You know, you have brothers that are great. You have a father that was great. You have uncles that are great. But it becomes such a popular thing culturally to say these, they just mentally say, okay, tick. And even if down the line something could possibly have happened between you two, he already knows I've got to leave her alone. So let me know what you think in the comments. I appreciate it. You guys liking, commenting, subscribing. New channel, really trying to grow. Appreciate any help I can get.